So my name is Marie. I'm a first year optometry student at Nova Southeastern University. And I think I'm just here to kind of talk to you guys about Nova and why I chose Nova, maybe some general things about applications and stuff like that. And I'm originally from Calgary, but I did 3 years of my undergrad at U of A, and then I got into optometry school after those 3 years. So. Um, so the first reason why I chose NSU, this isn't in any particular order, so it's not like I chose NSU just because it's in Florida, but it is a perk. So it's located in Davie. That's kind of like a suburb of Fort Lauderdale. It's about 45 minutes from Miami. There's lots of beaches. That's about 20 minutes away. And South Florida is pretty diverse in population in general. And also, our class is pretty diverse. I like that about South Florida. I just have like a little pie chart there at the bottom. This is the undergrad student population. So you can see kind of it's pretty diverse. I couldn't find anything specifically for grad, but it kind of translates into the grad school as well. And in terms of diversity, hold on, I have some stats here. There's more doctorate and professional degrees that are awarded to Hispanic and other minorities than any other university in the US from NSU, and it's second only to Stanford for professional degrees awarded to African Americans. So I thought that was pretty cool. And we also have an LGBTQ plus club and mandatory ally training. And we also had an info session on like microaggressions and racial issues in optometry that was mandatory. And we had a couple speakers from the 3%, which is a group of African American optometrists. Okay, so another reason why I chose NSU is because of the tuition. I'm gonna see if I can um, stop the screen sharing and maybe screen share my Google Chrome here. Okay, so this is a great website for you guys if you're comparing optometry schools. So I use this. This is from SEO that's in Memphis. And it just kind of breaks down the general tuition prices of every school. And this is pretty recent, it's 2020. So of course, SEO is at the top here, but Nova Southeastern is here third. So that'll be your tuition per year, still quite expensive. It's in US dollars. But you can see compared to other schools, it is pretty competitive. You can also see the average GPA, entrances for all the schools, average OAT, and the apply admit. So you can see that NSU, my class has about 94 students in the traditional program. So not too bad. You can compare and figure out which class size that you like better too. Okay, and I'll go back to the PowerPoint. Okay. Yeah, so I chose NSU as well just because of the tuition. A lot of that is kind of made up in the cost of living. So if you're trying to choose which school to apply to, I guess that's also something that you should be looking at is, that combination. But it is still cheaper than California. So at least there's that. Okay. And another thing that was important to me was the NBEO scores. So your NBEO is the exam that you take to practice as an optometrist. This is the one that's in the US. The Canadian one I heard is comparable. They don't have specific statistics for that. But we do have a lot of Canadian students here at NSU, and I don't think anybody's had a huge problem getting back to Canada. So you can see the national average here. We can look at this statistic. The ultimate pass rate was about 91, and for NSU it was 97. So I would look at this also if you're trying to choose schools. The other school that I applied to was the Incarnate Word School in San Antonio. And it was a great school and everybody was really, really nice. They kind of treat you like family. So if you're looking at a school that you feel like really communal, that's a great choice. But their board scores was a little bit lower and I was looking for something with a higher ultimate pass rate. Okay, so just some miscellaneous things. NSU has interdisciplinary education. So that means that we don't just take classes with optometry students. Most of our classes are just with our optometry student class. But last semester I took anatomy with dental students. This semester I'm taking physiology with dental, and I'm taking neuroanatomy with physiotherapy and occupational therapy students. So this is kind of nice. This is a little bit like um, better for non-COVID times when you can kind of interact with people. Right now it's kind of all online, so I don't get to have all the benefits from that, but hopefully soon. I have the picture of our building here on this page, so that's this one over here. And this is the building that we have med students and occupational therapy students, and everything is in this building. So you have a lot of interaction with other students. You can make friends with your professional, future colleagues. Um, and NSU is mainly a healthcare university, so you have a lot of people who are kind of in that state of grad school mind. There's more graduate than undergraduate students. I have a picture of me in the corner. It's kind of awkward. But we all wear scrubs to school, another kind of miscellaneous thing. And we're all color coded. So optometry is surgical green, and medicine is like blue and stuff like that. So you can kind of tell who's from which college, which is kind of fun. Class size is about 100. I like that because you have more chance to meet friends and interact with, again, your professional future colleagues. And there are other schools that kind of go from maybe 40 to 150 students. I thought it was a really safe campus when I went. I know you guys can't really travel as much now, so um, you're just gonna have to take my word for it for now. But there's about 3 other colleges that surround NSU, so it's very much a college town. There's just a lot of like young people everywhere. In terms of labs and equipment, there are a lot for us to use. When I went to San Antonio, I only applied to 2 schools, like San Antonio and NSU, so I only have the 2 to compare. Um, and maybe the amount of equipment and labs that they had was, perfect for the amount of students that they had. But NSU, for example, had like 10 machines that San Antonio had. So that was something that I liked about NSU. As well, we only use iPads for notes. We use it for taking exams, any quizzes, assignments, anything, textbooks is on the iPad, so we don't have to carry around a lot of stuff. And it's required that you purchase one when you come to school. Okay, so I think this is interesting for you guys. There's 3 different streams of optometry school at NSU. So I'm in the traditional program, that's 4 years, so most schools are just 4 years. There's also the POP program. So that's preparatory, and it's 5 years. So if you don't get into the traditional program, you may be invited to the POP program. So people with maybe slightly lower GPAs or OAT scores, you might need an extra year to kind of prove that you're ready. You have to have slightly higher grades to move forward, but a lot of people in my class are in this program, so it's kind of an option if you have lower grades or you're concerned about that. And there's also the extended program. So that's for mainly for students who have families. Like there's somebody who has like a newborn baby in my class who's in the extended program. And you basically have less classes. You have a lighter course load. So these are the entering statistics. I know I kind of mentioned before it was about 3.4, and you can see that's 2020 is 3.48. I will say that when I went for interviews, they do add a couple of points for Canadian students. So if you're under 3.5, I wouldn't like freak out. When I went to San Antonio, they very much like concretely said to me that they're going to add a couple points to my GPA because they see Canadian students as having like a more rigorous education. And when I went to NSU, they said that they take that into account. That's what my interviewer told me. So if you're a little bit under the 3.5, don't worry too much. I think if you're over 3, you should be okay. And then the OAT is your academic average and then your science average. Okay, so I have a lot on this slide, but I kind of broke down on the left here all the classes that you need to get into NSU. So if you want to like screenshot it or something, these are the ones that I took. There's like a lot of research. You gotta go through all your classes and make sure you have everything. Um, the calculus class, of course, there's like a couple different ones you could take, but something like biochem, I mean, biochem 200 is biochem 200. And you need 2 English, doesn't matter which ones they are, and you need 5 kind of humanities classes to get in. So you don't need a bachelor's degree to get into NSU. So if anybody wants to apply earlier, you can do that. And in all of those classes, you also need a minimum of C. So if you have less than a C in any of those classes, you might have to retake them. Another thing is the application. Of course, you need to apply through Optom CAS for all of the American schools. That opens in July. They have something called rolling admission. I don't know if you guys heard about that yet, but the earlier you apply, the better, because the seats get filled up, and the longer you wait, the more competitive it gets. And I think I went in for my interview around November for NSU, and when I asked for a scholarship, they were like, "We have like only a few left." So take that into account. If you want a scholarship or something, it's better to apply earlier. I had to beg for one, like low key. And then the OAT scores have to be less than 2 years old. Sending in your transcript you can do through Bear Tracks. It's pretty easy. For reference letters, NSU actually needs 3. Most schools require 2. But when you submit everything into OptomCAS, you submit all of your reference letters and all the schools can look at it. So if you have these 3, you can apply to any school. And shadowing hours, when I went to Student Doctor Net, if you guys know the website, it's really negative. So I wouldn't recommend looking through it all the time. But some students had like 100 hours, 500 hours. I only had 30 hours and nobody said anything negative about that. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. I would shadow as much as you feel like ready to talk about your experiences, because in my interview, they asked me about my shadowing, like what was something that stood out to me. In essays, you probably want to talk about it. So just in terms of shadowing. And I also heard from the admissions representative that they like when you have multiple different types of, like corporate versus private versus like vision therapy, optometrists. So try to kind of branch out and choose a couple of different areas that you want to. I'm sure right now it's a little bit more difficult. You'll have to slip it in somewhere. And volunteering and work experience, there's sections for that on OptomCAS. It kind of separates it into optometric and extracurricular. So be sure you have kind of both of those. I had 2 months of work experience. Again, nobody said that it wasn't enough as just an optometric tech. And just as a warning, there's also a secondary application for NSU that's an extra $50. So you have to write another essay, unfortunately. And then you go for your interview. So. Okay. So in terms of transitioning to the US, there was a bit of a culture shock for sure. I've only been here for about a month, but definitely like the COVID thing is kind of different here. And just like in general, like the people are different, it's a lot more crowded. But NSU has about like 10% of its class is Canadian, so you kind of have some like automatic friends, I guess. Obviously, it's super expensive. Just it's just how it's gonna be. And the visa requirements, we need an I-20, and it's actually pretty simple. I was really worried about the visa because you have to submit all these documents. I had no idea how to do anything, but the school kind of walks you right through it. You submit whatever you need to, and they send you the I-20. And thankfully, since we're Canadian, we don't have to go through any interviews or anything. We can go to the border and just show our I-20, which is nice because when I was moving to the US, all of those interview things were closed. So there's also CHAOS. That's the Canadian Association of Optometry Students. So we have a Canadian club at NSU, which is nice. You kind of have people to talk to about phone plans and internet plans and things like that. Okay, and just as life as an OD1, that's what we call our first year optometry students. During my first week, they kind of tried to scare you into, working really hard, which I understand. But um, in my opinion, I have more time now than I did in undergrad. We can keep it hush. But I know there's a lot of classes there, but the professors are really straightforward about what's on exam. So, like, for example, I have an exam next week. The professor gave me exactly each question on the exam. I just have to find the answers. Um, but it is challenging. They do challenge you. We have, labs and things like that, but they don't stress you on the things that you don't need to know because it is a professional school. We have a lot of information to digest. But my point is, like, don't let them scare you into thinking you can't do it, because if you get in, everybody's kind of in the same boat and had similar grades and everything. So that's just my classes for first and second semester. If you want to kind of look through it a little bit, we have about 7 to 8 classes per semester, so sounds like a lot, and I was like really scared. But it actually didn't turn out to be too bad. And we have a mandatory 10 hours of community service. And I also just have like a quick like Snapchat video of my optometry Zoom session because my first semester was online, and they sent you the $5,000 equipment, which you had to pay for, so another expense to prepare for. Um, and we were kind of doing lab at home. And right now we're doing lectures at home and then labs in person, but they're pretty good about making sure that we sanitize like before we come and after we come, and our groups are pretty small and things like that. So at least there's that. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, thanks for listening. If you guys have any questions, you can ask them. I also left my email there if you don't want to like say it out loud and you just want to email me. There's my phone number. And yeah.
Well, first of all, thank you for a very informative presentation. I think you brought an
No
interesting
problem.
perspective.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I hope you guys think about, joining NSU. It's a pretty fun place to be, and it's really warm. So yeah.
Could you elaborate on the
Mm.
cultural shock, let's say?
Yeah, sure. I would say definitely just it's a kind of special times with the pandemic, and I guess people take it a little bit less seriously here. You can kind of see that reflected in the numbers. So I definitely was a little bit shocked about that. The driving here is insane. There's a lot of, you know, traffic, and everything in general is a lot more congested. It's kind of a tourist destination, so there are still tourists coming in. Um, and of course, Canadians are known to be really polite. There's kind of different um, ways of talking here and things like that. But you guys will be fine if you decide to come to the U.S. I think every state is different regarding that. So yeah. Okay, well, I mean, if there is no other questions, that's basically all I had. You guys can email me if you have anything extra, and good luck in all of your, applications and everything. And yeah,
Thank
All right.
you.
Thanks
Thank
again.
you.
thank you. All right, have a nice night.
You too.